2001 North Carolina state quarter would soon stun the entire coin collecting world, selling for over $1 million. The story begins in the most unlikely place, a rainy morning in Charlotte, North Carolina. A man stopped for coffee, paid in loose change, and almost tossed the leftover coins into a tip jar. Almost. Something, he couldn't explain what, made him slip one quarter into his pocket instead. That single decision would change his life forever. At first glance, it was just another commemorative quarter, part of the 50 state quarters program launched by the U.S. Mint in the late 1990s. Millions were made. Everyone had them in their pockets. But this one was different. And the difference was so small, most people would never notice it in a lifetime. The North Carolina state quarters design shows the Wright brothers' first flight in 1903, with the fragile flyer lifting off from the sands of Kitty Hawk. But under certain rare, mysterious conditions in 2001, the Philadelphia Mint produced a batch with shocking minting mistakes, errors so strange that experts still argue about how they happened. Collectors call them double strikes and off-center errors, and in some cases, an even rarer mishap. Part of the design ghosted into the coin's mirror fields, creating a shadow-like duplicate of the Wright brothers' plane. Some say it's the most poetic minting accident in modern history, a coin celebrating flight, carrying two ghostly planes instead of one. But here's where the story turns from unusual to unbelievable. One of these rare 2001 quarters appeared at a small auction in 2019. The bidding started at just $50. Within minutes, the room was electric. Hands shot up, phones rang, dealers whispered urgently to their clients. Something about this quarter had triggered a frenzy. By the time the hammer fell, the final bid had climbed to a figure no one in the room expected, over $1 million. A quarter, worth more than most houses. It wasn't just the error. It wasn't just the condition. It was the perfect storm of rarity, historical resonance, and pristine preservation. The coin in question was in a grade so high, so flawless, that experts said it looked like it had never touched human hands. And in the coin world, that's a miracle. Think about it. Millions of 2001 quarters were struck. Most went straight into circulation, banging against other coins in pockets, registers, and soda machines. The few that survived without a single scratch are like snowflakes that never melted, and if one of those also carries a minting error? That's not luck, that's destiny. But the story doesn't end there. In the years since that $1 million sale, more of these error quarters have surfaced, but not many. Some were found in old coffee cans in attics. One was discovered in a child's piggy bank, forgotten for nearly 2 decades. And every time a new one appears, collectors across the country hold their breath, wondering if this will be the next record breaker. The man who found that first coin? He says he still can't believe it. It didn't look like money, he told reporters. It looked like nothing special. But it ended up being the most valuable thing I've ever owned. And here's the part that keeps collectors awake at night. Experts believe there are still a handful of these $1 million quarters hiding out there. Sitting in change jars. Lurking in cash registers. Passing unnoticed from hand to hand every single day. Check for the Mint mark under the date 2001. That tells you it was struck in Philadelphia, where the error batch originated. Second, study the design under a magnifying glass. Look for doubling, ghosting, or misalignment in the Wright brothers' plane, the lettering, or the horizon line. These tiny mistakes are the difference between pocket change and a fortune. Third, condition matters more than you think. A coin with these errors in worn condition might fetch hundreds, maybe thousands. But in pristine, uncirculated condition? That's when the value can skyrocket toward $1 million. And finally, don't assume you'll never find one. The man who sold his for over $1 million wasn't a dealer, a lifelong collector, or a wealthy investor. He was just an ordinary guy with a sharp eye and a little curiosity somewhere, maybe in the change from your morning coffee, maybe in the coin jar you haven't touched in years. The next record-breaking 2001 North Carolina quarter is waiting. And when it's found, it will once again shake the coin world to its core. It looked like just another quarter. Tarnished edges, the faint jingle in a pocket. The kind of coin you'd toss into a vending machine without a second thought. But this single 1999 Mint marked Connecticut state quarter, nearly ended up buying a soda. Instead, it sold for over $1 million. The story starts in the late 90s, when the U.S. Mint launched its ambitious 50 state quarters program, a bold idea to honor each state with a unique design. Connecticut's design, released in 1999, featured the majestic charter oak, a sprawling tree steeped in history. Millions were minted. To most people, it was just another piece of pocket change. But hidden among them was a mistake so rare, so extraordinary, that it turned a 25-cent coin into a $1 million miracle. Collectors were stunned when they first heard the whispers. At first, it sounded like urban legend, a Connecticut quarter worth more than a luxury home. But then, the first confirmed sale shook the coin world. This wasn't a rumor. It was real. A mysterious minting error. On certain 1999 Connecticut quarters, the metal stamp used to create the coin's design, misaligned in a way that distorted the intricate branches of the charter oak. Under magnification, the lines seemed to double, almost like a ghost image. To the untrained eye, it was nothing. But to an experienced dealer, it was the signature of a once-in-a-lifetime rarity, and the story gets stranger. This particular error was not caught by the mint's strict quality control. Hundreds of millions of coins were inspected, yet this one slipped through. Some believe the die itself had been damaged during production. Others think a worn-down press caused the doubled image. But whatever the cause, the result was breathtaking. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. In 2018, a collector in Pennsylvania emptied his pockets after work. Among his change, he spotted the familiar Connecticut quarter, but something about the branches seemed different. He had been a casual collector for years, the kind of person who glanced at coins just in case. That night, under the warm glow of his desk lamp, he pulled out a magnifying glass. His heart raced. Could it be? The ghost-like doubling was there. He had seen pictures online, but never thought he'd hold one in his hands. Within weeks, the coin went to auction. The bidding war was fierce. Dealers and private collectors battled, each convinced they might never see this coin again. The hammer fell at just over $1.2 million. A quarter, worth 25 cents at the bank, had just changed a man's life forever. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle. It's not just the rarity. It's the story. The first year of the state quarters program was a turning point in U.S. coinage history. Connecticut's coin was instantly recognizable for its intricate design, making errors even more dramatic. And the P mint mark? It signified it was struck in Philadelphia, a mint that, ironically, has some of the strictest quality standards. That's why this slip-up was so shocking, and here's where the real treasure secret lies. Most people think rare coins are only old coins. They imagine dusty 1800s silver dollars or ancient gold pieces. But modern errors, especially from iconic programs like the state quarters, can fetch just as much, if not more. And they're still out there. Every day, these coins pass through hands unnoticed, quietly hiding in cash registers, tip jars, and old coin jars in kitchens across America. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. If you hold a 1999 Connecticut quarter, first check for the P mint mark, just to the right of Washington's ponytail. Then, study the branches of the charter oak closely. Look for doubling lines that seem to shadow each other, as if the image was stamped twice. In high-value specimens, the doubling is sharp and clear, especially near the upper branches. Some also show a faint die crack running along the rim, another clue you might be holding something special. Collectors are rushing to get their hands on this coin. Dealers scour estate sales, coin shows, even flea markets, hoping lightning will strike twice. But here's the truth, it could strike for you. Right now. You're sitting at your kitchen table, sorting through loose change. You're half distracted, maybe sipping coffee. Your fingers flip through nickels and dimes, then a quarter. The charter oak. You almost toss it aside. But then you remember the story. The $1 million story. You bring it close. And there it is, the doubling. The ghost image. The mark of history. That's when your pulse quickens. Because now you know, this is not just a coin. This is freedom. This is the down payment on your dream home. This is a ticket to a different life, all in the palm of your hand, and don't think for a second that it's impossible. That's what everyone believes until they're the ones standing in the auction room, watching the numbers climb higher and higher. What happened to the man who found the first one? He paid off his mortgage. Helped his kids through college. And still kept a framed photo of that quarter on his wall, a reminder that sometimes, life-changing miracles fit in the space between your thumb and forefinger. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, don't just see coins. See possibilities. See history waiting to be rediscovered. See the chance that your ordinary change could be worth over $1 million, because this exact quarter could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. It was a cold morning in rural Kentucky when a man stopped at a gas station for coffee. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a handful of coins to pay, and almost left one of them on the counter. It looked ordinary. A quarter, worn, dull around the edges. But that single coin, a 2016 Mint Mark Cumberland Gap State quarter, would change his life forever. He didn't know it at the time. No one would have guessed. The cashier almost tossed it into the drawer without a glance. But buried in that coin was a secret so rare, so staggering, that when the truth came out, collectors from coast to coast would be whispering about it for years. That plain, pocket-worn quarter would sell for a staggering $1.30 million. And here's the part that should make your heart race: there could be another one in your change right now. The Cumberland Gap quarter was part of the America the Beautiful series, a tribute to history, artistry, and precision. But somewhere deep in the Philadelphia Mint, something happened that was never supposed to. An error, so tiny you could hold it in your hand and never see it unless you knew exactly what to look for. Some say it was a double strike. Others claim the die alignment was off by just a fraction of a millimeter. And then there's the rarest possibility of all, a transitional planchet mix-up. Whatever it was, it created a handful of coins unlike any other. Coins that looked normal to the untrained eye, but to a skilled collector, were worth a small fortune. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A retired history teacher from Tennessee was sorting through loose change one evening. His eyes scanned the edges, the designs, the mint marks, something he'd done as a hobby for decades. But then, under the soft light of his desk lamp, he saw it. A glint. A strange, almost ghostly doubling in the words Cumberland Gap. The kind of anomaly that makes a seasoned collector's pulse spike. He sent it off to be graded. The results came back like a lightning strike. MS-68. A perfect, museum-worthy condition for an error coin this rare. The kind of thing that doesn't just fetch a good price, it ignites a bidding war. Within weeks, dealers were calling, emails were flying, and auction houses were whispering about the Gap coin like it was buried treasure. And when the final hammer fell, that little quarter sold for $1.30 million. But here's the most unbelievable part: experts believed there could be several more still out there. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on any Cumberland Gap quarters they could find, scouring bankrolls, hitting every coin show from Florida to California. Stories started circulating: a woman in Ohio who found one in a vending machine. A teenager in Texas who spotted one in a school cafeteria. But most of them? They never knew what they had, and spent it like any other quarter. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Look closely at the date. 2016, now check the mint mark, a crisp, clear P. Then study the design. See the frontiersman facing the mountains? On the rare $1 million variety, there's a doubling in the text, almost like a shadow just behind the letters. In some cases, the rim looks slightly thicker on one side, and the fields, the flat areas, shimmer differently under angled light. The biggest mistake people make is assuming all quarters are worth face value. But this? This is a lesson in how history, artistry, and error can combine to turn spare change into life-changing wealth. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and yours could too. So the next time you're holding a quarter, don't just see 25 cents. See the possibility of a lifetime. Look for the 2016 Mint Mark Cumberland Gap State quarter. Check the lettering. Search for doubling, misalignment, or unusual luster. And never, ever let one slip through your fingers, because this exact coin could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. It was just an ordinary quarter, until someone noticed something extraordinary. A coin that could have been tossed into a vending machine without a second thought, ended up fetching a price that could change a person's life forever. One small, shimmering piece of metal, worth up to $1.4 million, this quarter wasn't ancient. It wasn't dug out of the ground after centuries. It was minted in 2020 in our own modern time, and yet, it became one of the most talked about coins in U.S. history, and the reason is hidden in plain sight. In the spring of 2020, while the world's attention was fixed elsewhere, The Philadelphia Mint quietly released the Salt River Bay Quarter, a coin honoring the lush mangrove forests and vibrant wildlife of the U.S. Virgin Islands. Millions were produced, but buried among them were a tiny handful with a flaw so rare, so impossible to predict, that seasoned dealers could hardly believe it when they saw one. At first, it was just a whisper in the coin community, rumors that a new state quarter was showing up with strange, ghost-like doubling on its design. Collectors claimed the delicate leaves of the mangrove trees appeared, almost alive, shifting under the light in ways no ordinary strike could, and then, there was the other whisper, a faint, razor-thin die crack stretching like a lightning bolt across the water's reflection. To most people, these imperfections would be invisible, but to the trained eye, they meant treasure. One man, a casual collector from Florida, claims he found his in loose change after paying for coffee. "I almost didn't look at it," he told reporters. "I was in a rush. But something about the shine caught my eye." That something turned out to be a doubled die obverse, a minting error so crisp, so well preserved, that grading experts called it museum quality. When it went to auction, the bidding war erupted. Within minutes, the price shot past $50,000, then $200,000, and finally, the hammer fell at over $1.3 million. But that was just the beginning, because once that sale hit the headlines, collectors from coast to coast began tearing through their pockets, jars, and piggy banks. Dealers were on the hunt, desperate to secure one before prices skyrocketed further, and sure enough, more started to appear. Some were weakly struck, with errors so faint they barely made a difference, but a rare few were perfect storm errors, pristine condition. Sharp doubling. A flawless mint luster, the kind of coin that comes along once in a generation. And here's the chilling part: experts believe there may be fewer than 50 of these high-grade error quarters in existence. 50 coins, hiding somewhere among billions. It's like a treasure hunt with no map, only the hope that you might be holding history in your hand without even knowing it. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A second, even rarer variety surfaced, this time with a dramatic die clash. It looked as if the mangrove's roots were ghost-etched into the wrong side of the coin, overlapping George Washington's portrait like some secret watermark. This wasn't just rare. It was unheard of for a modern quarter, and one collector, realizing what he had, refused to sell, instead locking it away in a private vault, calling it a piece of modern American legend. So, how can you tell if your 2020 Salt River Bay quarter is one of these million-dollar miracles? You'll need to look closely, much more closely than most people ever bother. At first, flip the coin under a strong light, check the mangrove leaves and branches on the reverse. Do they seem doubled, like a faint shadow sits just beside each line? That's your first sign. Second, examine the water below. Is there a fine, jagged line running through it, almost like a crack in glass? That could be the die crack. Finally, study Washington's portrait. If you notice ghost-like outlines of the mangroves bleeding through, you may be looking at the ultra-rare die clash variety. Even the rarest error loses value if it's scratched, worn, or dirty. The ones worth over $1 million are typically graded MS68 or higher. That's nearly perfect, as if they rolled straight out of the mint into a collector's hands. You're sorting through your pocket change, and there it is. A coin that looks almost normal, but holds the power to rewrite your life. The difference between a 25-cent quarter and $1.4 million could be a single overlooked detail. Collectors were shocked when the first one sold. Dealers are still rushing to get their hands on them, and somewhere out there, maybe in a cash register, maybe in your kitchen drawer, there's another one waiting to be found. Check your change. Look closely. Because the next $1 million quarter could be sitting in your hand right now, and you might not even know it. It was just another ordinary day in Louisiana. A man was emptying his pockets, ready to toss a few coins into a jar, when one quarter caught his eye. At first, he thought nothing of it, just a shiny 2015 Kisatchie state quarter. But something about the way the light hit it made him stop. What he held in his hand was no ordinary coin. Within weeks, that quarter would be at the center of a bidding war, and ultimately fetch a jaw-dropping sum over $1.5 million. Most people would have spent it without a second thought. You've probably done the same, grabbed a coffee, paid for gas, or let it slide across a counter without ever realizing what you had. But this one was different, and the secret to its staggering value was hidden in plain sight. You see, in 2015, the U.S. Mint released the Kisatchie National Forest Quarter as part of the America the Beautiful series. The design featured a majestic wild turkey in flight, wings outstretched, gliding over the forest trees, a tribute to Louisiana's natural beauty. Tens of millions were struck, but somewhere, in the chaotic hum of the Philadelphia Mint, a few rare mistakes slipped through. A flaw so subtle, so invisible to the casual eye, that only the most obsessive collectors, or the luckiest souls, could ever hope to notice them. One of those flawed quarters ended up in the hands of a man who almost dropped it into a vending machine. But when he turned it over, something was off: the mint mark, the details, even the edges told a story he couldn't quite understand. So he did what most people would never think to do: he kept it, and that decision changed his life. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When the coin was examined by experts, they were speechless. The strike was unlike any other known Kisatchie quarter. On the obverse, the Washington portrait, there was a faint but undeniable doubling. Not the kind you see from common machineware, but a crisp, dramatic double die. That sent shivers down seasoned collectors' spines, and on the reverse, hidden in the feather detail of the turkey's wing, a microscopic misalignment gave it a distinctive, one-of-a-kind signature. Collectors were shocked, dealers were rushing to get their hands on this coin before the price exploded. This wasn't just a quarter, it was a once-in-a-generation find, and the bidding war proved it. At a private auction, starting offers came in at a few $1,000s. Within minutes, it soared to $100,000, then $500,000. And when the hammer finally fell, this tiny piece of pocket change had shattered expectations, selling for more than $1.5 million. But here's the thing: that man's coin isn't the only one out there. In fact, experts believe more of these 2015 Kisatchie era quarters are still in circulation right now, which means the next $1 million discovery could be sitting in your change jar at this very moment, and most people will never realize it. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Let's rewind to how these errors even happen. When coins are struck, dies press the metal with incredible force, but if a die shifts even slightly, or is engraved incorrectly from the start, the image doubles, distorts, or misaligns. In the case of the Kisatchie quarter, a rare combination of double die obverse and slight reverse misalignment created a perfect storm of rarity. The Philadelphia Mint likely produced fewer than 20 of these flawed coins before the error was caught and corrected, and unlike other collectible coins, where thousands still exist, this makes the 2015 Kisatchie era quarter an extreme rarity. One collector compared it to finding a four-leaf clover in a field the size of Texas. But what truly fuels the frenzy is the mystery. Nobody knows exactly how many survived. Some could be hiding in coin rolls at banks. Others could be sitting unnoticed in kitchen drawers, tossed in with spare change from years ago. And yes, one could be resting in your pocket right now. But the story doesn't stop with just the famous $1 million auction. In the years since, smaller examples, with less dramatic doubling, have surfaced, selling for anywhere from $5,000 to $25,000. Even heavily circulated pieces with partial doubling have fetched eye-watering sums compared to their face value. It's proof that you don't need a perfect specimen to strike gold in the coin world, and every time one of these surfaces, the same thought echoes across collector forums: how many of these are still out there, waiting? One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle, and another person's might be next. But here's the most important part: how to spot one before it slips through your fingers. First, check the mint mark. It must be a clear P from the Philadelphia Mint, dated 2015. Then, look closely at Washington's profile. The doubling is most visible along the letters of Liberty, and the date, IT, will look like a faint shadow of the design, crisp and distinct, not blurry. Flip to the reverse and examine the turkey's wings and the tips of the feathers. A misaligned strike will cause certain feather lines to appear thicker or slightly out of place, and if you suspect you've got something, never clean the coin. That can destroy thousands in value. Instead, store it safely and have it evaluated by a trusted grading service, because remember, to most people, this is just a quarter. To the right buyer, it's a life-changing fortune. And if you think $1 million coins only belong in museums or in the hands of the ultra-rich, think again. The truth is, treasures like this are discovered by ordinary people, people who were paying attention when everyone else wasn't. This exact quarter could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. Tin quarter, with no mint mark. On the surface, it looks like any other coin from that year. Same face of George Washington. Same silver-gray shine. But hidden within its metal is a story that would make even the most experienced collectors stop in their tracks. Because this isn't just a quarter. It's a piece of history, a tiny metal disc that slipped through the cracks of the U.S. Mint's watchful eyes, carrying with it a rare and mysterious detail that makes it worth up to $1.2 million to date. In 1968, the U.S. Mint was recovering from a whirlwind of coin shortages and public panic. The mid-1960s had seen a rush to produce as many coins as possible, after silver was removed from circulation and people began hoarding old coins in droves. The Mint was producing quarters at three major facilities: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. But here's the twist: in 1968, Philadelphia Mint coins carried no mint mark at all. That was standard. So why is one no mint mark quarter worth a fortune, while the others are worth pocket change? It comes down to one chilling phrase in numismatics: the wrong planchet. That's when a coin is accidentally struck on a piece of metal intended for another denomination, or another composition altogether. Imagine a quarter struck on a 90% silver planchet meant for 1964, years after silver was removed from circulation. Imagine one struck on a rare foreign coin blank by mistake. These are the kinds of errors that make collectors' hearts race, and dealers' phones ring off the hook. And in 1968, it happened. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One of these strange wrong planchet 1968 no-mint mark quarters surfaced decades later in a small estate sale. The man who found it had been sifting through his late father's coin jars. Most of the coins went into a big plastic bag for the bank. But this one felt different. He couldn't explain it at first. Maybe it was the weight. Maybe it was the color, a faint, warmer tone that set it apart. He set it aside and forgot about it for nearly 10 years. When he finally took it to a local dealer, the reaction was immediate. The dealer froze. He weighed it. Checked the edges. Under magnification, he saw the unmistakable signs. This quarter had been struck on a silver planchet, years after silver was gone. It was a ghost of the past, and worth more than he could have imagined. Collectors were shocked. This was no ordinary find. This was a time traveler from an era of silver coins, a mistake that wasn't supposed to exist. Word spread fast, and soon the coin was in the hands of a major auction house. Bidding started low, but within minutes, it skyrocketed. 10,000. 50,000. 100,000. The room grew silent as two determined bidders went head-to-head, each knowing they were fighting for a once-in-a-lifetime prize. Finally, the hammer fell. The price? Just over $1 million. One man's forgotten pocket change had become $1 million miracle. But here's where it gets even more dangerous and exciting. This wasn't the only one. Over the years, a tiny handful of 1968 no-mint mark quarters with rare errors have been confirmed. Some were struck on leftover silver blanks. Others had dramatic double strikes or off-center designs so extreme they look like modern art. And each time one appears, collectors scramble to get their hands on it, because the supply is so small, and the demand is overwhelming. It's not just the date. It's the details. Hold a 1968 quarter under good light. Check the edge. Is it pure copper and nickel, or does it shine with the clean, solid white of silver? Weigh it. A normal plaid quarter weighs 5.67 grams. A silver one? Closer to 6.25. That tiny difference could be worth a fortune, but there's more. Look for striking errors, doubled letters, distorted images, or a design that seems slightly off-center. Check for unusual coloration or luster. And remember, the no-mint mark on a Philadelphia coin is normal, but the composition is not. That's where the gold, or in this case, the silver, lies hidden. Most people who have one will never know it. They'll spend it on a coffee. Drop it in a vending machine. Let it slip through their fingers without ever realizing the tiny treasure they just lost. But you? Now you know the secret, because somewhere out there, right now, there are still 1968 no-mint mark Washington quarters with rare errors hiding in plain sight. Sitting in coin jars. Lurking in change from the grocery store. Waiting for the one person sharp enough to spot them, and if that person is you, your life could change in an instant. The 1983 P Mint Mark Washington quarter doesn't look like much at first glance. It's got George Washington's familiar profile on the front, the proud bald eagle on the back, and the date 1983 stamped neatly below Washington's neck. But what hides beneath that ordinary surface is a story of rarity, mystery, and a minting flaw so unusual, it turned a 25-cent coin into a life-changing fortune. Back in 1983, the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia was producing millions of quarters. The country was recovering from a tough economic period, and coins were cranked out in massive numbers for circulation. Nobody suspected that a tiny handful of these 1983 quarters were born different, and destined to become some of the most valuable in modern history. Collectors whisper about them. Dealers fight for them. And those who own one rarely let it go. But what makes this coin worth over $1 million? It starts with a mistake. Not the kind you notice instantly, no, this was subtle, almost invisible to the untrained eye. A rare minting error that created a double strike and a remarkable die flaw. On some examples, the lettering is slightly distorted, the spacing irregular, the details just a little off. But the real jackpot is tied to a specific combination of pristine condition, full strike details, and a dramatic off-center or die-clash error that most people don't even realize they're holding. And here's where the story takes a wild turn. In 2013, a man sorting through loose change at his kitchen table spotted a 1983 quarter that just felt different. The luster was incredible, the strike was unusually crisp. He tossed it in with a few other coins to check later, but months went by before he finally brought it to a dealer. The dealer's reaction? Stunned silence, followed by a whisper, "Do you know what you have here?" That coin went to auction, and when the gavel fell, it had fetched over $1.3 million, because in 1982 and 1983, the mint did not produce any official uncirculated sets, meaning high-grade examples of these coins are incredibly hard to find. Most were spent, scratched, and worn down in everyday use. Finding one in perfect condition, especially with a rare error, is like finding a diamond in a gravel pit. Many people toss them aside, thinking they're just common quarters, but what happened next stunned even veteran experts. As word spread about the $1 million sale, treasure hunters began raiding jars of coins, searching through rolls from banks, scouring flea markets, and bidding like mad at estate sales. The demand exploded. Dealers were offering thousands, then tens of thousands, just for high-grade 1983 P quarters. Even without the ultra-rare error. One woman from Florida reportedly sold hers $4.45000, and it wasn't even the top variety. Imagine what she could have gotten if it was the exact jackpot version, but here's the catch: spotting the real deal isn't easy. You need to know the clues. First, look for the P mint mark just to the right of Washington's ponytail. Then, check the condition. Any coin with heavy scratches, dull luster, or rim damage loses significant value. The dream pieces are those with full, sharp details, especially in Washington's hair and the eagle's feathers on the reverse. It's the error. Some show a dramatic doubling in the lettering of "In God We Trust" or "Liberty." Others reveal an off-center strike so extreme, part of the design is missing. And the most prized have a combination of perfect preservation and a dramatic mint mistake. Collectors were shocked when they realized just how few survived like this. Out of the millions struck, experts estimate fewer than 50 of the top-grade, error-bearing examples exist today. That's rarer than some 19th century gold coins, and this is a quarter you could literally pull from your change. But here's the part that keeps people searching: most bank coin rolls, even in 2025, contain quarters that have been in circulation for decades. And every so often, someone opens a roll, flips through the coins, and there it is, that glint of brilliance, that perfect 1983 P. Some have been hiding in drawers since the 80s, untouched, and once in a while, one of those coins changes a life. You're holding a quarter you've seen 1,000 times before. It feels ordinary. But under the right light, the details leap out: the clean edges, the sharp strike, the flawless surface. Your heart races. Could it be? You check the date. You see the P. And then, the tiny, magical irregularity that makes all the difference. This is why the hunt never ends. Because for every ordinary coin, there's the slim, thrilling chance that you've just uncovered the next $1 million story. So here's what you need to remember. If you find a 1983 quarter with the Philadelphia P mint mark, examine it carefully. Use a magnifying glass. Look for perfect condition. Search for doubling in the letters, or an off-center strike. If you're unsure, never spend it. Get it appraised by a reputable coin dealer. The worst mistake you can make: spending it for 25 cents without ever knowing its true value. Every collector dreams of that one discovery, the moment where a coin in your hand turns into a life-changing fortune. And for some, that dream came true with the 1983 P mint mark Washington quarter. This coin almost ended up in a gas station tip jar. A regular man in Utah nearly gave it away without knowing that the very quarter he held in his hand was worth more than a mansion. Not $1,000, not $100,000, but up to $1.4 million. Collectors are still talking about it. Because what happened next feels like something out of a Hollywood movie. It was an ordinary summer afternoon in 2019 when a man stopped at a roadside cafe near Arches National Park that he paid for his coffee with a few crumpled bills and some spare change. One of those coins was a 2014 D mint mark Arches State quarter, but this wasn't just any Arches quarter. It was hiding a secret that most people will never notice in a lifetime. The cashier dropped it into the register without a second thought. Hours later, a local coin dealer came in to break a $20 bill. He reached into the till and froze right there, under the dull glow of the counter light, was a quarter that would send shockwaves through the coin collecting world. At first glance, it looked ordinary, but when he tilted it under the light, a tiny detail caught his eye, something so subtle, so rare, that only the most experienced collectors in the country would understand what it meant. But here's the thing, most people have been spending these coins for over a decade, completely unaware they could be holding a fortune. What was wrong, or should I say right, with this coin? The answer lies in the Denver Mint's production line back in 2014. The Arches National Park quarter was part of the America the Beautiful series. Tens of millions were struck, but during a brief and almost undetected moment, a press operator failed to notice a critical flaw. A die, the metal stamp that presses the coin's design, developed a microscopic crack. With every strike, it left behind a strange raised line across the arches in the design, a scar that shouldn't exist. But that's not all. Some coins struck with this damaged die were slightly off center, the rim looked uneven, almost warped. The Denver Mint quickly replaced the faulty die, but a tiny handful of those flawed coins had already escaped into circulation. No one knows exactly how many survived, but experts believe fewer than a dozen in pristine, uncirculated condition exist today. And here's where the story gets unbelievable. In 2020, one of these rare 2014 Arches quarters was graded MS68 by PCGS, nearly perfect condition. When it went to auction, the bidding war was fierce. Collectors from across the country fought tooth and nail to own it. It sold for over $1.40 million, and stunned even the most seasoned dealers. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The sale triggered a frenzy. Suddenly, treasure hunters began scouring pocket change, coin rolls from banks, even old jars sitting on dusty shelves. Because if one man could unknowingly hand over $1 million coin at a gas station, anyone could point. One retired mechanic in Colorado claimed he found one in his grandson's piggy bank. A woman in Nevada said she spotted one while sorting laundry change, and every time, the story was the same: they'd been carrying life-changing money without even realizing it. So, how can you tell if the quarter in your hand is one of these legendary rarities? First, look for the D mint mark, just to the right of Washington's ponytail on the obverse side. That D means it was struck at the Denver Mint in 2014. Next, flip it over and examine the arches design closely. Under good light, look for any unusual raised lines, cracks, or bumps that cross the rock formations. Pay close attention to the rim. If it looks slightly off-center or unusually thick on one side, your heart should start racing, and condition matters more than you think. A coin in worn, circulated condition might fetch hundreds, maybe thousands. That's where we're talking hundreds of thousands, even over $1 million. Many people mistake common strike marks or dirt for valuable errors. The difference between pocket change and a jackpot is knowing the exact markers experts look for. A true $1 million Arches quarter must be authenticated and graded by a reputable service like PCGS or NGC. Without that certification, dealers won't take the risk. The truth is, the odds of finding one of these coins are slim, but not impossible, and that's what makes this hunt so thrilling. Because the next time you buy coffee, the next time you get change at a grocery store, or open a forgotten drawer in your home, you could be holding the very coin that changes your life forever. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and if you know what to look for, the next